الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله.
طيب. The difference is mechanical ibadah is the ibadah that you do routinely, mechanically, and this ibadah does not have an impact on you. Okay, some people go to the masjid, pray every day, and they lie all the time. Some people go for hajj, and they cheat. The biggest thieves in town. So in this case, ibadah does not have an impact on you. It is not coming from your heart. So this is the difference between genuine ibadah and mechanical ibadah. Genuine ibadah, it comes from your heart, and it changes your attitude. It has an impact on your life. The Prophet ﷺ said, he's talking about mechanical ibadah in an authentic hadith, and he said, some people will come on the day of judgment and they will be broke. And the Sahaba said, the broke among us is someone who doesn't have money, like me. But the Prophet ﷺ said, I'm not talking about this bankrupt. I'm talking about someone who prays and fasts, they go for hajj, give sadaqah, but they lie to this, they cheat that, they hit this, they punch this in the face, so they lose the reward of their good deeds, and they come on the day of judgment with no hasanat, no rewards. Mechanical ibadah, again, is something that you do mechanically, and it doesn't have an impact on your life. And in this case, if you pray mechanically, then salah becomes nothing more than yoga. You know how people make yoga? They sit like this, just like we pray. If you fast mechanically, it is nothing more than being on diet. You don't eat, you don't drink, khalas, just like this guy over there. When you give zakah mechanically, okay, it becomes nothing more than your GST. Khalas. Hajj done mechanically is nothing more than physical exercise. You go to the shaitan over there and you throw things. You walk around the Kaaba, you jog, just like jogging around the beach. Okay. So if Hajj has no impact on your life, it is nothing more than physical exercise. So again, genuine ibadah has to come from your heart, and it has to have an impact on your life. Why salah is important? Number one, salah comes from the root word in Arabic, wa salah, a link. So salah is basically a link between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When people come to my office for counseling, they have some marriage problems, and they come to me, and the lady comes to my office crying, and the guy comes to my office bleeding. And they've been fighting and calling 911, and they come bleeding, and I tell them, okay, don't bleed on my couch, because it's new. But in any case, the first question I asked them, do you guys pray? You fight all the time, he cheats on his wife, all that stuff. They lie, all these problems. Do you pray? No. I get this answer all the time. So if you don't pray, if you don't have a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and your family? Plus, if you don't have taqwa, if you're not afraid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how come you will be afraid of your wife or your husband, or even the shaykh? Nothing. Number two, salah is a source of relaxation for a Muslim. And hatta fil hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, when the time for Iqamah came, he used to tell Bilal alayhi salam, Arihna biha ya Bilal. Give us comfort and relaxation by salah. So make Iqamah for salah so we can relax when we pray. The first question you'll get on the day of judgment is, did you pray? This is the Prophet ﷺ says in an authentic hadith on Sahih Tirmidhi, the first question you'll get on the day of judgment is salah. Then the Prophet ﷺ says, if salah is accepted, everything else will be a piece of cake. If salah is missed up, barbecue. The last word that came out of the Prophet ﷺ's mouth before he gave up his soul was, establish salah. As-salatu as-salatu wa ma malakat aymanukum. So if the Prophet ﷺ knew that there's something more important in Islam than salah, he would have chosen to seal his mission with. But he chose salah. Why? Because salah is the most important thing in Islam. The Prophet ﷺ also tells us in an authentic hadith that salah is the most important thing in this whole world. In an authentic hadith, he passed by a grave, and he said to the Sahaba, do you know who is in this grave? They said so and so. So the Prophet ﷺ says, لَرَكْعَتَيْنِ أَحَبُّ إِلَى هَذَا مِنْ بَقِيَّةِ دُنْيَاكُمْ. If this guy, 2 rak'ahs for this guy are more important than this whole world and everything in it. So if he comes back to life, the only thing he will do is to pray because of the importance of salat. Do you know that in Islam, if you do something like a sadaqah or a salah or anything, the Prophet ﷺ will get a reward, just like you. Why? Because he told us about everything that we need to do and everything we need to avoid. So every time you don't pray, you prevent the Prophet ﷺ from getting the reward like you. When you pray, you reward him for teaching you how to pray. Salah is also unique in the sense that it is the only thing that the Prophet ﷺ was commanded to do in the heavens. Everything else like Hajj, Zakah, Siyam, everything, Jibreel alayhi salam brought the commandments to the Prophet ﷺ in his house or Mecca or Medina, but Salah is different. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought the Prophet ﷺ all the way to the heavens to give the order to pray. And I always give the example of, if I work for Mahmoud Thraya and he wants me to do something, he would just send me an email. If it is something more important, he will give me a call. But if it is something exceptionally important, he will ask me to buy tickets and travel to his office all the way to Toronto, so he will talk to me in person. In this case, it means it is something exceptionally important. And this is what happened in the case of Salah. The Prophet ﷺ says in the authentic hadith, the closest you can get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is when you pray. When you make sujood, this is the closest you can get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which means, if you have a dua, a prayer that you want to make, then the best time to do it is when you make sujood, you humble yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You ask Him, more likely your dua will be accepted. Salah is the only thing in Islam that can't be waived. For example, if you are poor, you don't have money, you don't have to give zakat. If you are sick or a traveler, you don't have to fast. Maybe you can fast after Ramadan. If someone is poor and they don't have a good health, they don't have to go for the Hajj. And so on and so forth. But even if you are run over by a truck, you have to pray. Sitting down, lying on your side. They say even with your neck, with your eyes. And some even say if you can't even move your eyes, then pray with your heart. And with your eyes, if you close your eyes halfway, this is ruku'. If you close it all the way down, this is sujood. And you can even pray with your heart. Salah cannot be waived for any reason. Of course, Salah is a way of showing gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are told in the authentic hadith that the Prophet ﷺ used to pray at night until his feet were swollen, and his wife would say, you don't have to do this. You don't have any sins. Everything is forgiven. So the Prophet ﷺ would say, should I not be a grateful servant to Allah? So the Prophet ﷺ used Salah to show gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I like this coming point. We read in the story of Adam and the shaitan in the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked Adam, the shaitan to make sujood, or actually the angels to make sujood for Adam alayhi salam. Of course, as we know in the Quran, the angels made sujood, they prostrated themselves to Adam alayhi salam, but the shaitan refused out of arrogance, because he said Adam is made out of mud and I'm made out of fire. Okay, the question is, the shaitan, Satan, refused to make sujood to Adam alayhi salam because Allah told him to make sujood to Adam. But what about if Allah asked the shaitan to make sujood to Allah? Do you think the shaitan would have refused to make sujood to Allah? Yes or no? Raise your hand. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the shaitan to make sujood for Allah, would he have made sujood?
Yes.
Who said yes? Okay. The shaitan would have made sujood to Allah if Allah commanded him to make sujood to him. But what about us? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding us to make sujood for him 5 times a day. And most of us don't pray. Who is better in this case, the shaitan or us? Technically the shaitan, because if he was commanded to make sujood to Allah, he would have made sujood. But us, come to salah, hayya ala salah, hayya al falah, 5 times a day, we don't pray. So in this case, in that sense, he is much better than us. When we read in the Quran, the verses that talk about those who waste the salah, they will get this punishment in the hellfire. Actually, where it talks about wasting the salah in the Quran, it doesn't talk about those who don't pray at all. It talks about those who delay the salah until the time for the next salah. Yani they don't pray Dhuhr until the time for Asr comes, for no reason, no excuse. Those, of course, this group will get a valley, what they call the valley of Ghai in the hellfire. It's like in the middle of the hellfire. But the basement of the hellfire is called Saqar. And Saqar is reserved for those who don't pray at all. In the Quran, مَا سَلَكَكُمْ فِي سَقَرْ قَالُوا لَمْ نَكُ مِنَ الْمُصَلِّينَ. So the people who don't pray will get this question on the Day of Judgment. Why? What did make you land in the basement of the hellfire? Reason number 1, we never prayed. So 2 different punishments. Those who delay the salah will get a punishment, and those who don't pray at all will get a different punishment. Of course, there is this famous hadith in Bukhari. A man came and he prayed very fast, faster than light, and the Prophet ﷺ told him to go back and pray, and he did it 3 times. Then the Prophet ﷺ taught him how to pray. He said, "O Prophet of Allah, I don't know better than this, teach me." Of course, the most important thing in salah is khushu'. One of the requirements of salah is khushu'. The other requirements are, number 1, the time has to come for salah. One sister was asking me, okay, I go to school and I don't have time to pray Dhuhr on time. So what she did, basically, she used to pray Dhuhr before she went to school at 9 in the morning. I said, but the time the time has not come for you to pray. Then the salah is not acceptable. You have to wait for the time to pray. If for some reason you have to combine Dhuhr with Asr and pray them at the time of Asr together, inshallah you get the reward. But if you prayed before the time, no reward. Also, you have to have wudu. You have to purify yourself and get ready for the salah. We have this joke back home. There was this masjid and nobody prayed in that masjid because people were busy playing games. So what happened? The sheikh put an ad in the paper. If you come and make salah in this particular masjid, we will give you $5 per salah. Okay. So, mashallah, when the people got the ad in the news, in the mail, of course, the masjid was packed. The people were praying in the hallway, in the masjid, on the roof, on the wall, everywhere, in the parking lot. So they came to the sheikh after the first salah and they said, where's our money? And he said, I didn't say in the ad that I'm going to pay you per salah, I'm going to pay you per month. So come to me on the first of the month, I'll give you the money for the whole month. Sure enough, they came back to him at the end of the month and they said, okay, where's our money? And people came with bags, with trucks, ready to take all the money. And he said, you know what, guys, I got no money. You see, I wanted you to pray and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you the reward. He said, okay, we know you are a liar. You are a liar and now you're laughing at us, but we are laughing at you. You know why? Because we always came to the salah without wudu, knowing that you would lie to us. We didn't pray. Now we are laughing at you. You think we were praying, but we didn't pray. No wudu. So, also, there is this thing, something happens, something weird happens. You see, you're watching this boring movie like Gone with the Wind, or this hockey game, man, and you never blink. But as soon as you stand on that carpet, man, you pray for 4 minutes, man, you start yawning and collapsing and thinking about something else, how miserable you are in your marriage and all that stuff. You never think about this in the game. But when you pray, you start thinking about this stuff. And you get bored very easily in the salah. So watching 2-3 hour movie is nothing, but praying for 2-3 minutes is like a load on your shoulder. And this is what Allah says in the Quran. وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِعِينَ. Allah says in the Quran that salah is a heavy load on the shoulder of those who don't have khushu' in the salah, those who don't humble themselves in the salah, and those who don't focus in the salah. This reminds me of two famous songs. James Brown, and Abu Ali is going to shoot me in the head now. They are famous songs. I don't watch these songs, but they are very famous. Back in the 1970s, this guy was very famous in the US, James Brown. He's an African-American singer. Yeah, two of his most famous songs are "I Feel Good," "I Feel Good," all these things. Okay, he's searching for his gun. Then the other one, "I Got Ants in My Pants." Okay, so this is basically what happens when you watch a movie or a hockey game. You feel good, but as soon as you stand in the salah, "I got ants in my pants, I can't sit down." This is what the song says. So you always scratch your head, dig in your nose, look outside the window, look at yawn in the salah. Why? Because you don't feel good in the salah. The Prophet ﷺ says, you get the reward for salah according to your khushu'. If you focus half of the time, you get half of the reward for salah. If you focus 1/3, you get 1/3. 5%, you get 5%. And this is an authentic hadith in Sahih al-Jami. What do you need to do? Khushu' in salah begins when you go to to make wudu. Some people delay the salah and they go and they just very quickly, like a bullet. Then they come out and they go and they pray before the adhan for Asr, for example, very quickly. They do things very quickly. Then you walk to the masjid. And after you finish salah, of course, you have this intention that Allah will give you life, so you will pray the next salah. And the Prophet ﷺ says, you will get the reward for all the time between the two prayers, even if you don't pray. But you have this intention. Of course, the pillars of salah, as I said, the wudu, the time has to come for salah. And also, takbirat al-ihram, you say Allahu Akbar when you begin, and you raise your hands like this. And it is symbolic of throwing the whole world behind your back. Allahu Akbar, Allah is bigger, greater than anything, then you throw the world behind your back. The scholars say if you forget to say Allahu Akbar at the beginning of salah like this, salah doesn't count. You have to do it again. So this is the key to salah. And of course, khushu' is also another requirement. Standing in salah and saying al-Fatiha. Saying al-Fatiha is a requirement. If you don't say al-Fatiha in a rak'ah, it doesn't count. You have to do the rak'ah again. But if you forget to say a short surah after Fatiha, reciting a short surah after Fatiha is a sunnah, which means if you forget, the salah is acceptable, and you don't even have to make sujood al-sahw at the end. It is only a sunnah. So again, if you forget to say a short surah after Fatiha, the salah is accepted. You don't have to make sujood al-sahw. Also, the way you put your hands on your chest like this, or down like this, or like this, or this is fine details, okay? The Prophet ﷺ did it like this, but if you choose to do it like this, or like this, or like this, acceptable. Doing it like this in the salah is not acceptable. The Prophet ﷺ never did it. And some people cite how Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal prayed. It is true that at the end of his life he prayed like this, and the reason is his shoulders were broken. He couldn't put his hands like this. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, he was beaten by one of the tyrants of his time, and they broke his shoulders, and he couldn't put his hands like this. So he always prayed like this. So those who saw him, and they didn't know what happened to him, they think, oh, it's acceptable to pray like this. No. Also, the finger in the salah. Of course, every school of fiqh has a different way of moving your finger in the salah. Some say you can move your finger all the way till the end of the tashahhud. Some say when you mention the name of Allah, you move your finger. Like when you say At-Tahiyatullah, you move it. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, you move it. Some say you move it every time you make dua in the tashahhud. For example, when you say Assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabi, this is a dua. Why? Because you are asking Allah to shower His blessings on the Prophet ﷺ. So this is a dua. When you say Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa barik ala Muhammad at the end, this is dua, so you move your finger. The most authentic opinion is when you say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah in the middle of the tashahhud, you move your finger just a little bit like this. This is the most authentic opinion that I know of. That's it. But again, it is not a big deal. Some people, once they start to say a tashahhud, they sit like this and they move both fingers like this. And you're sitting like them and you can't focus in the salah, you panic. You have to close your eyes. No. Just make it easy and Allah will make things easier for you. The second tashahhud, the first tashahhud, which is actually in the second rak'ah in Maghrib, Isha, and Dhuhr, is sunnah. Which means if you miss the tashahhud in the second rak'ah, in Dhuhr, or Asr, or Maghrib, or Isha, you can make sujood al-sahwa at the end. It's not a big deal. But the tashahhud in the last rak'ah is a fard, which means if you forget it, you have to do the rak'ah again. Now, say for example, you forgot the tashahhud in the last rak'ah, you made salam, you have to do the whole rak'ah again and make sujood al-sahwa at the end. Because tashahhud in the last rak'ah is a pillar. Tashahhud in the second rak'ah is a sunnah, but tashahhud in the last rak'ah in salah is a pillar of salah. There is this scholar by the name Hatim al-Asam. He used to pray so beautifully, and people came to him and asked, how do you focus in the salah, and how do you make khushu' in the salah? He said, when I stand on that rock, and I say Allahu Akbar, I imagine that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in front of me, and the Kaaba is in front of me, and this whole world is behind me. Jannah is to my right, and the hellfire is to my left. And the sirat, the bridge between the hellfire and Jannah, is under my feet. And the angel of death is over my head, ready to take my soul. And after I finish, I'm not sure if my salah is accepted or is thrown back on my face. Now some people say, okay, if this guy is thinking about Allah, he is thinking about Jannah and the hellfire and the angels and death and the bridge between the hellfire, how can you focus in the salah? If you think about these things, every single verse in the Quran will talk about one of these things. The Quran always talks about Allah, about Jannah, about the hellfire, about death, about this, about that. So actually, if he thinks about all these things, this is what the Quran says. So you're not actually distracted when you think about these things. And of course, sincerity in the salah is a very important thing. Some people, like this guy, he used to come to the masjid all the time. He started to come. I didn't know him from before, but like 1 week, this guy never missed a salah. He was coming all the time. He was praying right behind me and crying in the salah, making a pool and all this stuff. So I said, mashallah, you come to the salah all the time. What's going on here? He said, because I love the masjid so much. I love the imam and all. Okay. Then after a few days, he never came back. And I asked, and they said, oh, this guy was coming to the masjid because there's this sister who goes to the masjid all the time, and he wanted to propose, and he wanted her family to know that he's a kabir al-hujjaj, he's a good guy. Okay. But when they refused him, when they threw him out of the window, he never came because khalas, there's no need to come to the masjid anymore. So sincerity, you have to pray with sincerity, not in order that people will say, oh, he's a good guy. Well, this guy was praying in the masjid one time. He was standing in the salah and praying beautifully, and these two guys were sitting behind him and said, look at this guy, mashallah, he's praying so beautifully. Mashallah, his salah is beautiful. So he looked at them in salah and said, you know what, I'm fasting too. So not only do I pray beautifully, but I'm fasting beautifully too. No ikhlas, no ikhlas. So after you finish, you have to make the tasabih, the adhkar, and you pray the optional salawat like the sunan before or after, because the Prophet ﷺ says, if something is missing in your obligatory salah, the optional salawat will make up for anything missing. Also, don't listen to the shaitan. The shaitan will whisper to you all the time, because here's the thing. Shaitan will not be able, most of the time, he will not be able to stop you from praying. But what the shaitan does, because shaitan is smart, he will let you pray, but he will miss up the reward, he will miss up your salah. How? Okay, he will come to you before the salah and say, okay, you know what? They just made adhan for salah like half an hour ago. You still have an hour and a half before Asr. You get a lot of time, man. Or before Fajr, they just made adhan. Just sleep for another half an hour. I will wake you. You pray before sunrise. Then you wake up the next day. Or he will come to you in the salah and say, did you make wudu, man? Did you make wudu before you came to the salah? So all the time in salah you're thinking, do I have wudu or no? Oh my God, you start panicking, pulling your hair off. Okay, now after thinking about 2 rak'ahs in the salah, he will come to you again and say, okay, now you made wudu. Now we are sure you made wudu. Which rak'ah is it? Are you in the 2nd rak'ah or the 5th rak'ah? You don't know. Or he will come to you after salah and say, you know, man, your salah is messed up. All the time we're thinking about wudu, you're thinking about what rak'ah you are in. You are praying so people will say, oh, he's a good guy. You know what? Your salah is not good. Don't pray and go to Medina, inshallah, study a course in the Masjid al-Nabawi on salah. When you perfect your salah, you can start to pray. Don't listen to the shaitan. So, we got only 5 candies. We'll show you some pictures of mistakes in the salah. If you find the mistake, we'll give you a candy.
His eyes.
What about them? Okay, you already got a candy.
You're not allowed to answer.
The Prophet ﷺ says, when you pray, look at the spot where you make sujood. So if I make sujood here, this is where you look. If you keep looking at the sky and counting all the birds and all the planes that pass you by, you will never focus in the salah. If you pray in the living room and you have a picture of your wedding day, and you look at the picture, you see your wife in there, oh man, big mistake. Big mistake. Then you start to think about your miserable life, you will never focus in the salah. This guy was talking to his wife one day, and she got so mad. They have been married for 7 years. And she said, you know what? If I go back in time 7 years ago, I would never marry you. And even if shaitan came to me, I would marry him and not marry you. He said, but this is haram. This is not permissible in Islam. She said, why? He said, because Islamically, a lady is not allowed to marry her brother. Shaitan is your brother, like a brother to you. What about this guy?
Thank you.
Raise your hand.
Why?
He doesn't have to show.
Yes. Thank you. He's not focusing in the salah. Some people, they are watching a soccer game. They love soccer like me. I'm a soccer player. And so they don't want to go to pray in the masjid because they will miss the game. What they do is they pray in the house in front of the TV. So they're praying like this, and every time there's a goal or something, you feel them like this. Or someone kicks someone, tackles someone in the game, they do like this. So they leave the game as they pray. No focus in the salah. Or even if his team scores a goal in the salah, he feel happy, like, yeah, in the salah. What about this guy? Anyone?
Out loud, you said?
Huh?
Out loud, you said?
Yes, exactly. Don't say the intention out loud. The intention is in the heart. Okay? So in salah, don't say, I intend to make salah for Allah. No. Intention is in the heart. When you wake up for Fajr at 5:30 in the morning, you go to the bathroom, you make wudu, you come back, you put on your clothes, you go to the garage, take out your car, drive all the way to the masjid. This by itself is an intention, right? This by itself is an intention. You don't go to the masjid to watch movies. You go to the masjid to pray. So this by itself is an intention. What about this guy? Dinner is ready, then eat, and you're hungry, eat first. Because if you go to the salah and you're hungry, you'll be thinking about them chicken all the time in the salah. And sometimes when the Imam reads about the pleasures in Jannah and all the birds and all the food in Jannah, you start crying. And the people think, oh, he likes the Imam so much. But the sucker is hungry. This is what this is. Also, if you need to use the washroom, you have to go before the salah to free your mind, or you will be thinking about this all the time. The ruku' position. Of course, you have to keep it straight. Some people do it like this, and some people do like this, so their nose touches the floor. And the best way to do it is to imagine that you have your most valuable iPad on your back or laptop. So if you do it like this, it's gonna fall back. If you do it like this, it's gonna fall to the front. But if you keep it straight, it's gonna stay on your back. The Prophet ﷺ says in the authentic hadith in Bukhari that when you make sujood, 7 organs have to touch the ground. The nose and the forehead, this is 1 organ. Then the palms of the hand, 3. The knees, 5. And the toes, they touch from the front, 7. Again, we didn't say anything about the elbows. So when you pray, don't make your elbows touch the ground. And don't do like this. Like this. What about this one? Stawu. Yeah. You have to keep the lines straight. Also, the second and third and any line after the first one, they have to start right behind the Imam. So when you start a new line, start from the middle, right behind the Imam, not on the sides. So what happens? People stand on the side and they keep pulling each other. Come here, come here. No, stand in the middle. In this picture, some people, they are very late. They don't follow the Imam. They either are too fast or too slow. Okay. So like this guy, for example, he thinks that the Imam is too fast. And I need to say Surah Al-Baqarah in after Fatiha. Okay. I'm not satisfied with what the Imam reads. Or I'm not satisfied with saying Subhana Rabbiyal A'la 3 times in sujood. So they take like 5 minutes of ruku', 5 minutes. And the Imam is done. He goes home, he takes a shower, he goes to work. And the guy is still in salah. Too late. Too slow. The opposite is the guy who prays faster than the Imam. So if the Imam says, they finishes qira'ah, before the Imam says Allahu Akbar to make ruku', they do Sami' all the time before the Imam. And I remember one time, this is funny. I was praying in the Jami' at Al-Rashid, and in Salatul Fajr, I decided one day to read the very short surahs at the end of the Quran, because not everybody knows Arabic, so sometimes I don't say long surahs, I say short surahs so everybody understands. From Surah Al-Duha till the end of the Quran, Surah Al-Nas, the Prophet ﷺ used to say Allahu Akbar, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim between every 2 surahs. From Surah Al-Duha till the end. So I said, Surah وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا وَتَوَصَّى بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَصَّى بِالصَّبْرِ Allahu Akbar Bismillah. Then I said the next surah. I said about 7 surahs in the same rak'ah, in Fajr, because it's a long, the first rak'ah is usually long. Every time I said Allahu Akbar Bismillah, he made ruku'. Then I said the next surah, Allahu Akbar Bismillah, ruku'. He said I made 8 ruku' in the same rak'ah. I said, La hawla. Because you pray very fast, you have to wait for me to finish, then move. You should move, start moving after the Imam is done speaking. So when I say, Sami Allahu liman hamida, when I say that, you start to move, not before. What about these guys? They're not touching each other. Yes. space. They are leaving a space. You should get close to each other. But not too close. Some people don't feel comfortable when you squeeze them. Okay? And some people, especially those who are heavy set, they need some space when they make ruku' and sujood. So you don't have to squeeze them, okay? But don't leave a big gap between you and your brother or between the two sisters. They have this story. Is there anyone here from Pakistan? Okay. Okay, say. So I'm going to talk about Egypt, not Pakistan. Because I love biryani. So in Taraweeh, they were praying, okay, they were standing in the line ready for the Imam to start Salatul Taraweeh. And he looked at them, everything was okay, but these two guys, they left a big space between them because they didn't like each other. They had some issues and stuff. So the Imam asked them, brothers, please get close to each other and fill the gap. The guy didn't move. He said, brothers, please get close to each other. They said, they pretended they didn't hear him. They started to look at the... Okay, he said, brothers, I'm not going to start the salah before you get close to each other. They didn't answer him. He said, brothers, if you don't get close to each other, the shaitan will come and pray between you. They didn't listen to him. He said, I'm not starting the salah before you get close to each other, or the shaitan will come and pray between you guys. So one of them got so mad and he said to the sheikh, what's wrong with you? Why do you hate the shaitan too much? Let him come and pray with us here. Maybe Allah will give him hidayah. Maybe Allah will forgive him and give him hidayah, guidance. Also, reading out loud with the shaykh. Out loud with the shaykh. Some people, because when the Imam recites an easy surah, like Qul Wallahu Ahad, Qul Wallahu Ahad, they are happy. But when the Imam says a difficult surah, they don't know nothing. Allah says, وَإِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنُ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَأَنصِتُوا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. When the Quran is recited, you have to listen and pay attention. And all the scholars agree that this ayah talks about the Quran recitation in Salah. When the Imam recites Fatiha or anything else, you have to listen. If the Imam is done reading Surah Al-Fatiha, if he pauses for a few seconds, you can read Al-Fatiha. But if he recites right after وَلَضَّالِّينَ Ameen, listen to him. If you listen to his recitation of Al-Fatiha, then say Ameen, you will get the reward. You don't have to read Fatiha yourself. But if he gives you some time to say Fatiha, you can say it. Otherwise, just listen to the Imam's recitation. Some people come late for the Salah and they start, running, and when they come in the Salah, they start panting and they're not listening to anything. One day, the Prophet ﷺ was praying, and it's an authentic hadith, and in the middle of the Salah, he heard a lot of noise in the back, people falling down and running. So after the Salah, the Prophet ﷺ said, what happened? They said, we came late, and we wanted to catch the rak'ah with you. So the Prophet ﷺ told them, when you come to the Salah, come with khushu', with tranquility. If you catch the Salah, alhamdulillah. If you miss anything, just make it up after Salah. Not a big deal, but don't run. Some people come late, and they always like to pray in the front. Okay? And this is not acceptable. If you come late, pray in the back. But don't push your way and bother people. And some people even come on Friday, they come late, and they come and there's somebody sitting on their spot. They like to pray in a certain spot. If they pray somewhere else, they think the Salah is not accepted, or they will lose their focus in the Salah. And they come and they look at the guy, hey, yo, this is my spot. Bye-bye. Also, don't walk in front of people as they pray, even if you have to wait or find somewhere else. This happens on Fridays, when people finish their Salah and they start to pray, so Salatul Sunnah, and they pray right in front of the door. Somebody has to pass in front of you. The best way is to pray close to a wall or a pillar, or better yet, pray Sunnah in the house. The Prophet ﷺ said, Salatul Sunnah in the house is much better than Salatul Sunnah in the masjid. So pray fard in the masjid, but sunnah pray it in the house. You will get more rewards. And it is even much better if you pray sunnah in the house with your wife or with your husband. So you pray sunnah and she's going to pray jama'ah behind you, you will get the reward of jama'ah. This also happens all the time. We have the old folks who pray at Rashid, 90 years old with 2 feet in the grave. They have nothing to do, they are retired. So what they do, they always inspect the people who come to pray. So sometimes I'm sitting in the front and this guy comes running toward me and I'm scared. What the heck is going on here? And he says, this guy in the back, his pants are falling, man, and we can't focus in the salat because they are sitting in the back of the chairs. Oh my God. And I don't know what to say. If the awrah, the private parts, are seen during the salah, your salah is not accepted. You have to cover yourself properly before you pray. But I always tell the brothers, if someone comes to the masjid with a Madonna picture on their t-shirt, or their pants are falling down, or they wear gold, or anything, we have to give them nasiha in a good way. Okay, we shouldn't make fun of them, because there are thousands and thousands out there who never come to the masjid. And these guys have come a long way. If they come to the masjid, there's goodness in them. We should give them nasiha in the best way. And we should also give nasiha with knowledge. Because sometimes you take advantage, because you come to the masjid all the time, you have a beard, you have a jalabiyah, you think you know everything. And this guy comes and you start to give him orders around and stuff. And you have to have the knowledge before you advise someone or give someone nasiha in the masjid. And I like this story. It is not related to salah, but something else about udhiyah. There was a masjid in a country in Southeast Asia. I'm not going to mention the name of the country again because they will shoot me in the head. What happens, in that remote village, they didn't have an imam. Big problem. So what would they do? They got the guy off the street just because he knew Fatiha. Okay, so he would be their volunteer imam. So this imam was leading salah and everything, and they told him, why didn't you teach us something, because we are desperate, we need some knowledge. So what he did, basically, he got a book off the shelf and he started to read and explain to them. But he didn't have the knowledge. It was Eid al-Adha time, before Eid al-Adha, so he was reading about Eid al-Adha, about Udhiyah, Qurbani. He came across this statement in the book that says, وَيُسْتَحَبُّ الْوُضُوءُ لِلْأُضْحِيَةِ. The book says, and this is true, it is recommended to have wudu for the udhiyah or qurbani. So he said, the book says here, you have to make wudu for the animal before you kill it. Wallahi. My friend said he was there, and this is a true story. You have to make wudu for the animal, you have to wash its feet and hands, and no, before this you take it to the washroom, then out of the washroom, wash the hands, the feet, the nose, everything, then ready to go, ready to kill the animal. Then this guy came from the back of the masjid. He was stumbling and he was scared, and he said, Sheikh, may Allah forgive me, I'm ignorant. Last year I offered an animal, but I didn't make wudu for this animal before I killed it. Does this count? So the Sheikh says, according to the book here, it doesn't count. You see? I'm not making this up. This is what the book says. Okay, the book doesn't say this. So you have to have knowledge. Also, some people in the salah, they start crying for no reason. Wallahi, it happened several times. I'm reading at Fajr, then as soon as I say, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, then the whole cry, the whole salah is, I didn't say anything yet, just Fatiha. The guy's crying, and I said, MashaAllah, people love my voice. Some people, they come from work, they work in construction or something, and they smell like hell, okay? And they start standing in the line, and the smell of their socks is just like, you know the skunk? You know the skunk? Yes. and people start falling down and collapsing. See? Is it time for Salatul Maghrib?
Yes.
Salat, we'll go pray and we'll continue after Salat.
It happened once, like years ago, back in Saudi Arabia. There was like an old man, like he was our neighbors. He was almost 70 years old, and during the Salah, it was Salat Asr, and his phone rang, and he just answered. He said like, I can't talk right now. I'm gonna call you back after the Salah.
Like this guy.
Yeah, and like just concerned.
If you talk in the Salah is not accepted. You have to start all over again. Some questions about Salah. Now, inshallah, you can email me if I miss anything. You can email me at ccimam@gmail.com or cicimam. Either way. So, if I go to the masjid, I miss the Salatul Jama'ah, the first Jama'ah, and I go to the masjid and this guy is praying by himself. Can I, or this sister is praying by herself, if you go to the ladies' musalla, can I just pray behind them and give the reward of Jama'ah? The answer is yes. If you go to the musalla or here somewhere and there's someone praying, you can join them regardless of what they pray. If they pray fard or sunnah, whatever, it doesn't matter. You just join them and pray. What is the proof? The hadith of Sahih Bukhari. Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu anhu, he used to pray Isha behind the Prophet ﷺ. His people, their masjid was a little bit far away, like half an hour walk from the Prophet's masjid. So what they did basically, they waited for him, Mu'adh ibn Jabal, to pray with the Prophet ﷺ and go to lead them in Salatul Isha. So he prayed Isha twice. The first one was fard behind the Prophet ﷺ, and the second one was nafl, like an optional extra. He prayed just to get the reward, and his people would pray behind him jama'ah. Tayyib. If I'm praying Salatul Sunnah and someone joins me, should I read loud or silent? It depends on what salah you are praying. If you are praying Salatul Sunnah for Dhuhr and Asr, it has to be silent. All you need to say Allahu Akbar Subhan, just like the regular salah. If I'm the imam, this is what I will do. If I'm praying Sunnah, then this is what I do. I don't read Quran or Fatiha loud. If I pray the Sunnah for Maghrib or Isha and someone joins me, I should speak out loud. I should read as if I'm the imam. I read Fatiha loud and Surah loud. Okay, we have a problem now. What if I go to the masjid and this guy is praying Salatul Isha and I didn't pray Salatul Maghrib? So if I join the guy, he's praying Maghrib and my intention would be Maghrib. He's praying Isha, my intention is Maghrib. He's going to pray 4 rak'ahs and I'm praying 3. What should I do? Because he's praying 1 extra. They say you have 2 options. Either to finish the salah with him, even if you pray 1 extra rak'ah, because you don't know what he is going to pray. If he's going to pray Maghrib or Isha, you don't know. You just join them. Even if he prays an extra rak'ah, follow the imam, and the extra rak'ah would be like a sunnah for you. You'll get the reward. Or, in the 3rd rak'ah, sit down, read your tashahud, and finish your salah. Because once you pray 3 rak'ahs, your salah is over. Maghrib. Khalas, you don't have to pray a 4th. Okay, what about praying in the house with my sister or with my wife? Or with my husband, for that matter. I know in Salatul Jama'ah, if we pray Jama'ah together, the husband would pray in the front and the lady would pray right behind. Whether she is his mother or sister or wife. But what if we are praying Sunnah separately? I'm praying the 2 rak'ahs before Fajr on my own and she is praying whatever, 2 rak'ahs by herself. Does she have to stand behind me? The answer is no. If she prays in front of you, next to you, behind you, it doesn't make any difference. Because everyone is praying on their own, it doesn't matter where the lady prays, your sister or your wife or your mother. But if you pray Jama'ah, the followers have to pray behind the imam. And this is the ruling in this case. Questions? Questions? Yes, bro.
Yeah, if the person is praying Sunnah and you think it's Asr and you go pray with them, what is the ruling for that?
You just follow them.
Okay. And after they've done the Sunnah, you just stand up and continue?
Yes, and continue. If they pray 2 rak'ahs, you stand up and pray another 2. Yes, brother.
You can't have 2 jama'ahs and
No.
What if the sister is praying and you came in? You should wait for her to finish praying? Like,
If she is praying by herself, she is not praying jama'ah. Or even if a few sisters are praying by themselves, then you wait till they finish, then you pray, you start
you
your
have to
own.
wait till they finish. You can't just start.
If you pray by yourself, no problem. You start your own salat. But you are not joining them because they are behind you. But if you have brothers with you and there are sisters who are praying in jama'ah, wait till they finish, then start your own jama'ah. Yes. Because you can't have two jama'ahs at the same time. What else?
So just as a matter of a jama'ah. So say there's a sister praying by herself, and you walk in. You can pray by yourself. That's
You can
fine.
pray by yourself because it is not called jama'ah in this case because
Okay.
she's praying on her by
Jama'ah is
herself.
considered 3.
One with the imam.
One, two.
Yes. Yes, brother.
Can you close your eyes while reading Quran and Salah?
Technically, you should open your eyes and look at the spot where you make sujood. But in some carpets, they very colorful, and some of them they have like birds and animals. If you open your eyes and you look, you feel like the animals are moving and the birds are flying. So in this case, if you can't focus, you can close your eyes, because khushu', maintaining khushu' in the salah is more. Are you crying? Because maintaining khushu' in the salah is more important than opening your eyes. Yes, tell me. Yes.
Can you show us the positions for Jama'ah for sisters and for men? Like where is the sister supposed to stand if she's the imam for the sisters, and where the brothers are supposed to stand for the imam as well?
Okay.
For the brothers.
For the brothers, the imam should stand in the front. For the sisters, the lady should stand in the line with other sisters. And this is how the wives of the Sahaba used to pray. Aisha radiallahu anha used to stand in the line with other ladies and she used to pray and lead the salah in the line itself. But for the brothers, the imam prays in the front, unless the space is very limited. Then some brothers can pray with the imam in the same line, but they step a little bit to the back, not on the same line. Inshallah.
Could you say that, for example, Mahmoud Raya,
Hmm.
his voice, mashallah, very nice.
Hmm.
We have another guy who memorized Quran. Who should lead the salah?
The one who has more Quran.
More Quran, but what if like most of the guys they love his voice, like have more khushu'?
Okay. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Every time a delegation came to him, they stayed for a few weeks or a few days. He taught them Quran, and when they left, he told them, "Let the one who knows more Quran lead you." He didn't say the guy with the most beautiful voice. And he said, if all people have the same number of surahs memorized, then the guy who follows the sunnah more. If not, then the oldest among them, if all of them know the same surahs. In this authentic hadith, Amr ibn Salama in Bukhari, he said in this authentic hadith, we visited the Prophet ﷺ, we stayed with him for a period of time. Then when we left, the Prophet ﷺ told them, let the person among you with who knows more Quran lead the salah. So Amr ibn Salama in Bukhari says, I led the salah for my people when I was 6 years old. 6 years old. He was the imam, and people who were 60 and 70 years old prayed behind them just because he knew more Quran than them. Yeah. Yes, bro.
When it comes to the toes pointing forward, do they have to always be pointing forward throughout the whole prayer?
If you can.
If you can.
Because as I said, these things are sunan. Of course, if you do them, you get the reward, but sometimes you can't. Some people, because they have a medical condition, they can't pray in a certain way, then do your best. In Islam, you get the reward for doing your best, even if your best is not good enough. But try to point your fingers toward the Kaaba if you can. Yes.
If you know that you're not, you can't read the Quran very well, and you still go, you pray as a leader in the Jama'ah, that's wrong, right?
Again, the guy with more Quran,
Yeah.
especially with a
But
beautiful voice,
what if you come? What if
you
you
force
come?
yourself on the people.
Like there's somebody praying by himself already out loud, and then you come pray behind him, and his qira'ah is not correct.
Khalas. There's a difference between a guy who recites well with tajweed and everything, but his voice is not beautiful. He recites like Donald Duck. Okay, but so the salah is accepted because the makharij, the pronunciation is okay. and someone his makharij are messed up. He's making mistakes in the readings, and sometimes because of this he changes the meaning of the ayah. In this case, it is not acceptable to pray behind someone like this.
So do you make salam when that happens, or do you continue the prayer
It
with that?
depends. If his reading is okay, his voice is not the best, but he's reading correct, khalas, the
No,
meaning
but
is
if
okay.
they're making a mistake, like the whole meaning is gone.
Okay. If they make a mistake in the salah, you can correct them, if you can. But if all the tashkil, all the things is messed up, khalas.
One of the brothers let us last week, like in the sujood, he spent like 5 minutes. 5 minutes in sujood. What we should do?
He was leading salah?
Yeah. he was
Okay.
imam.
Again, in the hadith, if you are praying by yourself, make the salah as long as you want. But if you lead people, you have to cut it short because people are busy, they have things in their mind. And in this authentic hadith, I cited in Bukhari, when Mu'adh ibn Jabal used to go and lead his people in salah, the hadith I mentioned a few minutes ago, he used to recite the longest surah in the book. And imagine, people waited for him half an hour after the usual time to pray. And of course, Salatul Isha, they were tired all day long. And people were nodding off in Salah. People were tired. So, one day, he started to read a long surah. And this Sahabi, he was standing behind him. When he started to read the long surah, he said, "La hawla." What he did basically, because he was very tired, he can't stand in the Salah for half an hour. So what he did, he moved to the side and he prayed by himself and he read Qul Huwallahu Ahad wal Asr inna al-insana lafi khusr. He made salam and he left. So the next morning, Mu'adh ibn Jabal asked him, "What did you do? Why did you leave the salah behind me?" He said, "I'm tired. I can't pray the whole night like this. I'm tired the whole day." They went to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Sahabi said, "Mu'adh makes the salah very long and I can't pray with him. It's very hard for me, as well as some other people." So the Prophet ﷺ was angry at Mu'adh and he said, "If any one of you leads salah, let him make the salah very short, because some people are tired, people are old, people have something in their mind. So let people finish and go." And he ordered him in one narration of the hadith, read وَالضُّحَى or سَبِّحِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ الْأَعْلَى or إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا. He gave him some examples. Very short surahs. So make it short.
So what I should do? Can I make the shahud and go? No.
If it's an emergency,
Yeah.
like you have an exam, you're going to miss a flight, leave the imam and finish your salah. Pray by yourself.
To salat tamam or just
Finish your salah. No, complete your salah, but on your own.
Exactly.
But only in exceptional cases, not all the time. Only if there is an emergency, then you can finish the salah by yourself.
But what if the imam is reading something like Maghrib or Isha, reading Fatiha, instead of Adhar he put Ikhfa, instead of Ikhfa Adgham,
Okay.
and Tanween he put Mad 6 like
The tajweed rules, if they are messed up, but they don't change the meaning, the salah is accepted. Like you pray behind this guy and he said, غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. No mad. You should make it وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. But this doesn't change the meaning in any way. Okay? The salah is accepted. But if he changes the meaning, if he says صَلَاةَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمْتُ عَلَيْهِمْ, the meaning is messed up. Then the salah is not accepted. Yes. They call it اللغو اللحن الجلي واللحن الخفي. اللحن الجلي, the one that changes the meaning. الخفي, the one that doesn't change the meaning.
Is it true that if the imam make 3 mistakes, the salat is not accepted?
Some people say this, but where did they get this from? You have to have a proof from the Quran or the Sunnah. I don't think there's none.
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Give chance to other people.
What if the guy that leading you saw his aura? You're praying and his aura was shown. What would you do?
Talk to him after salah.
But would you continue the salah? But you said that if the aura is shown, the salah is not accepted.
Okay.
You've seen it.
Aura is classified into 2 types. Like the lower part of the back, it's aura, but it's aura mukhaffafa, like the light aura. If the thigh is shown, this is aura mukhaffafa. What is aura mughallada is the private parts. So if the thigh or the lower part of the back shows, the salah is accepted, but it's a little bit disliked. But the private parts, if they show in the salah is not valid. Yes. Yes, bro.
Can you pray in the dark?
Like there's no, you're saving power?
You wish that way you can focus more on.
Well, I don't see any reason why you turn off the lights to pray. But I don't know, man. You make it hard for me. No, keep the lights on. Keep the lights on. Even if you have to dim the lights a little bit, but keep some light in the room. Because if someone walks in the room and they turn on the lights and they see you praying like this, like a zombie in the dark.
Sisters have the question.
Yes, sis.
I have a question from a friend. She was asking about the summer prayer time, especially in like this region. Like I don't know where she heard it from, but she said like if you want like every once in a while, not every day, you can actually pray your Isha prayers like earlier, like 10 minutes or like 15 minutes earlier. Is that true? Because I don't know.
Okay.
As long as
I have to. Like this.
No. والله I have to get going.
I have to explain this a little bit. This is the world map. 45, they call it the altitude, whatever. Longitude, latitude. This is the south and this is the north. Here is what they call the standard time zone. And you have all Muslim countries, the 57 Muslim countries, they lie between 54 north and 45 south. Of course, all year long you have what they call the red twilight after Maghrib. Then when this appears, then the time for Isha begins. Then it is followed by complete darkness for several hours. Then like half an hour before Fajr, the white twilight comes in, and this is the time for Fajr. Okay. Now, the problem is over 45 degrees. Here we have Edmonton. I think Edmonton is to the side here. Edmonton is here. No, up here. Edmonton is 53, if I remember correctly. Degrees to the, is 53 degrees to the north. This is what they call the critical area. So what happens over 45 degrees north? In the spring, you have the twilight in the spring. The twilight, there's no complete darkness after red twilight. Then you have the white twilight of the Fajr, and they merge together. So in this critical time in the year, in the spring, what happens? There's no complete darkness. If you go outside the city, the light will always be there in the horizon. So what happens? They say in this time, there are 3 fatwas. Number 1, you can combine Maghrib and Isha in this time. Combine Maghrib and Isha. The second opinion, you follow the alamat al-shar'iyya. You wait for the red twilight to disappear, pray Isha, then when the white twilight appears, pray Fajr. And this means technically you will pray Isha with Fajr because they don't disappear. They merge. And this is not going to work. Or, the third opinion, all year long you have in this standard area, you have 1 hour and 15 minutes between Maghrib and Isha, all year long. So what happens? You apply this to all the countries here and all the countries here in the spring, where you have the critical time. So what we do at the Rashid, we apply the 1 hour, 15 minutes, and still in that period when the night is very short, you can combine Maghrib and Isha. The Prophet ﷺ in the authentic hadith in Sahih Muslim, who combined two prayers together, like Dhuhr and Asr together, he prayed them, Maghrib and Isha together for no reason. He was not traveling, he was not sick, and it was not raining or snowing outside. And the scholars say, to follow the sunnah, you can take advantage of this hadith once or twice or maximum 3 times in the year to combine two prayers together for no reason, just to follow the sunnah, but not every day. Wallahu a'lam.
I have a quick question. Okay, for us students, if we have a class during Salat al-Jum'ah, what's the ruling on that? Because some students, they have a really important class, they can't skip it for Salat.
What is the time for Salat al-Jum'ah?
12:31.
Okay. The problem is people confuse Jum'ah with Dhuhr. They think that Jum'ah is like Dhuhr in every way, but Jum'ah is not like Dhuhr. Number one, Jum'ah is loud. You read loud. Dhuhr is silent, so it is different. For Jum'ah you have a khutbah. Dhuhr doesn't have a khutbah. It's different. Also, the time for Jum'ah is different from the time for Dhuhr, which means the scholars say that the time, and say for example, in this time, the time for Salat al-Dhuhr is from say 12:20 to 2, say for example to 2. Okay, so this is the time for Dhuhr now. Dhuhr. Jum'ah is different. The time for Jum'ah starts from Salat al-Duha, which means you can pray at 9 or 10 in the morning, all the way to Asr, which means 2. Which means, if you take, say for example, you have an important class at 12:30. You can pray Jum'ah at 12 or at 11:30, because it's in the time. In the authentic hadith, the Prophet ﷺ used to sometimes, when it was very hot outside, and if people sit in the masjid or outside because there were so many people, they can't sit in the shade, he used to pray Jum'ah before the time for Dhuhr, so people can leave before it gets very hot for them. And this, it says, was before Dhuhr. So you can take advantage of this if there is a need. What is required for Jum'ah? If you read in Fiqh al-Sunnah, they say the number required for Jum'ah, they have 15 different opinions. From one person with the Imam, 2 people, all the way to over 100. Some people say 30, some people say 40, 12, more or less. None of them has a proof except the one that says the minimum for Salatul Jama'ah is 2. One with the Imam. So technically, if you are 2 guys by yourself, from the time of Duha till the time for Asr, you can either pray Dhuhr together or you can pray Salatul Jum'ah. One of you will give a talk for about 2-3 minutes, then pray Salatul Jum'ah 2 rak'ahs. The minimum requirement for Jum'ah is 2 people, and the time for Salatul Jum'ah starts with the time for Duha, say at 10 in the morning. And this solves all the problems. But of course, if you have time, you need to go to the masjid and pray with the Jama'ah. More questions? Yes.
It's regarding if you're praying on a chair. Can you just bring it up? Let's say you're praying Jama'ah. Can you just put it in any row, in any spot, and just pray?
Say it again.
Like if you're praying on a kirsi, on a chair, can you just bring it up to any spot or any row and just pray on it? Or do you have to like be in the back row?
Of course, you can pray a sunnah. You can pray the sunnah sitting down. The Prophet ﷺ prayed sunnah sitting down. But if there is a reason to sit down, you will get the full reward for salat al-sunnah. But if you sit down because you have a back problem, you can't stand up, you will get the full reward. But if you don't have a medical condition, you can stand up, but you choose to pray salat al-sunnah sitting down, you will get half of the reward. Salat al-fard is different because if you are able to pray standing up and you don't, you choose to sit down, your salah is not accepted. In fard you have to stand up. Unless, say for example, you're traveling, it's snowing outside and there's no way you can step out of the car and pray. In this case, you can pray in the car because there's no other alternative. If you pray in a chair behind the people, I think it would be better if you pray, you stand in the back or to the side. Because if you stand in the line and people pray behind you, you will make the space very small for them. They can't make ruku' and sujood. So choose a spot where you don't bother people when they pray. To the side or in the back. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Yes, sir.
Sheikh, when do you draw the line between difference of opinion and, for instance, making excuses for yourself? Like, for instance, like if you go to the mall, I went out to the mall several times with people and they say, and it's what the and they're like, you know what, we won't pray right now, we'll pray when we get home, you know? And then we'll be passing by a corridor and we'll see people praying right underneath the stairs. You know, so subhanAllah, like it's, and then you have, even for Salat al-Jama'ah too, you try to make it acceptable you try to make the time good for everyone. But then, like I know nurses don't have control over their own schedules, but the rest of us, we do have control over our schedules. So where do you draw the line when it comes to trying to practice the sunnah and making excuses for yourself and lagging in your sunnah?
Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran that we are here in this dunya for a reason. And the reason is given in Surah Al-Dhariyat. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. So Allah says, I only created the jinn and humans to worship and glorify me. So you are not here to get a degree in mechanical engineering or to play video games. You are here to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then, so the priority is to pray on time. Then, alhamdulillah, if you have time, you can study, you can travel, you can play soccer. And if you do this with a good intention, you will get the reward. Okay? You will get the reward as if you are doing ibadah. So, again, if you have the time, you have to pray on time. But if there is an excuse, like say for example, you are in an exam, there's no way in the world you can go outside. Or there's this doctor, he is operating on someone. If he leaves them for a couple of minutes, they will die. Then in this case, you can combine the salah. Praying in public, sometimes it's a good da'wah, sometimes it is dangerous. And I'll tell you from experience. Like this lady, she is a rap singer in France, and the story was all over the news about 2 months ago. She was famous and she was rich and everything, a celebrity, but she was on drugs and she was drinking. She was, stressed out. She has so many problems in her life. She said she was walking in the mall one day and she saw one brother. He's like a janitor. She saw him standing to the side and praying. She started there and staring at the brother, and she said, "What is this guy doing?" And she asked him, and he said, I'm praying. So she said, "You forget about your work, you forgot about everything, and you started to pray." And she accepted Islam. They have her videos on YouTube. She came with the hijab, mashallah, everything. She accepted Islam because she saw someone praying in public. On the other hand, there's this brother from Fiji. When I told him this story in the masjid, he came and he said, one day I was shopping and I went to the parking lot and I started to pray, and after I finished, and 2 cops were standing behind me. Somebody called the police. This guy was going to blow himself up. It depends. If you pray in public in most airports in the U.S., they will take you to the side, they ask you questions, oh, he's going to blow himself up in the plane, he's going to kill us all. It happened several times. They pull imams out of planes because they prayed at the airport. So look at the situation and, see how things work and you decide for yourself. I can't give you a manual, but you have brains and you know how things work and you decide for yourself. One more question because they don't pay me overtime. Yes, sister.
So the awrah for a woman is everything except for her hands and her face.
Yes.
So if a sister is praying in her room, is it permissible for her feet to show while she's praying?
You have to cover to wear socks or to cover your feet completely when you pray. Of course, this is if we are talking about the 5 prayers or the optional prayers. But if we mean by salah here, dua, because dua in Arabic means prayer. If you can say, oh Allah, give me this, give me this. You can say this without covering your hair or your feet. This is different. One last question? I think this is.
So let's just say you missed a prayer, and then, for example, today I missed Dhuhr, and when I came in with a few of my friends, they were praying Asr. So do I pray Adha first, or do I pray Asr?
Excellent question. According to the Shafi'i school, you have to pray in order, which means if you, say for example, you miss Dhuhr and they're praying Asr, you pray Asr with them, then after they finish, you have to do Dhuhr and Asr again. You have to pray in order. There's no proof whatsoever for this opinion. The Hanafi school, and this is a chosen opinion, if you can pray behind them with the intention of Dhuhr or Asr, it's up to you. Even if you choose to pray Asr with the intention of Asr with them, just pray Dhuhr right after. You don't have to pray twice. And they say for example, because in this case you owe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Salatul Dhuhr and Salatul Asr. So they say, if I owe Harun $10,000 and I owe Abu Ali $5,000 and this brother, what's your name? Yusuf, $7,000. And my contract with them says I have to give them this on the 1st of August. It doesn't matter if I give Yusuf first or Harun first or Muhammad, it doesn't make any difference. As long as you do it on the same day, it doesn't matter what order you do them. Of course, if you pray in order, alhamdulillah, but if you pray Asr before Dhuhr, the salah is accepted according to the Hanafi school, and this is the chosen opinion in this case. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Yes.
I heard it from someone who, mashallah, has lots of knowledge. They told me that the reward for prayer here in this dunya is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you a gift in Jannah, which is the wings to fly. Is this true?
I don't think this is mentioned in an authentic hadith. I never came across it. So when it comes to rewards for acts of worship, if you don't have it in the Quran or an authentic hadith, I can't say anything. It's left to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Sheikh, what if somebody, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him hidayah and he starts praying 5 times a day, has to make tawbah, he has to make qadha?
Okay. So an excellent question. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says في سورة الفرقان إلا من تاب وآمن وعمل عملا صالحا فأولئك يبدل الله سيئاتهم حسنات. If someone is 35 years old or 40 years old, they never prayed in their whole life before, and now Allah gave them hidayah and they started to pray, do they have to make up all the prayers in the past? 5 prayers a day, you have 30 what? 365 days in the year. It's going to be impossible for you to make up for all the prayers. They say in this case, all you need to do is ask Allah to forgive you, and from now on, pray on time. That's it. And if you are sincere, Allah will forgive you.
Struggle, believer, and never give up.